Jay here, straight for Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen. We're live. I apologise, we're late. We are going to have all the latest Manchester United news, as you would expect. We'll get into the usual suspects in a minute, but the big news or the sort of latest shocking news from the back pages is about Nicolas Jackson. So I'm going to get into all that, but make sure you're getting involved in the chat and the comments. And as we always do on a Sunday, let's have a bit of a chat. Let's have a bit of a discussion. Let us know what you think about some of these stories. Do you believe them? Do you trust them? Do you think it's nonsense? Do you think they would work if they were true? Let us know what you think. People making a few jokes about the fact that I am late. Listen, I'm sorry. We usually go live at 11:15. Allow me, man. It's Sunday. I went for a run. It took longer than I thought. I'm getting old, but we are live, and I'm glad to see so many of the usual suspects are here, even if you are having a dig at me. But I've got to take it, Anna, because I'm late. He says, finishing touch on the eyelashes. That was it. I was just sorting my eyelashes out. A full name Huggy, Chris Griffiths, Chris Scott. Real recognises real. All in the chat. Chris Scott says, come on, Baldy. Yes, I am here. Someone said, I missed it. Someone said my broken ankle has healed in the time we've been waiting. Yes, right, okay. I'll take my medicine. Let's get into some of these stories and let's talk about Nicolas Jackson, because I saw this one doing the round and I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, what, really? Nicolas Jackson to Manchester United? Are we having this one? So the Standard, a couple of hours ago, said Manchester United eyeing a shot move for Chelsea striker Nicolas Jackson. Jackson could be on his way, out of Chelsea following the signings of João Pedro and Liam Delap. So I get the idea that he could be moving on because they've got other options. And United are said to be interested in a deal for the 24-year-old as they close in on the signing of Bryan Mbeumo. According to French journalist Naby Digilit, United and Aston Villa are both interested in Jackson and have asked about the conditions of a deal. The report says Chelsea want around 60 million for Jackson, and a decision on his future will be made after tonight's Club World Cup final. Chelsea, of course, facing PSG in the Club World Cup final. I mean, 60 million doesn't seem extortionate, but how are United going to pay for that unless we make some sales? Because at the minute, we can't even get the Mbeumo deal over the line. So it seems highly unlikely, that Manchester United are going to somehow find 60 million to go and get Nicolas Jackson. So there's two parts of this, as with most transfer stories. There's the one part of, does it make sense? Is he a player that Manchester United would be interested in, should be interested in? Would you have him at Old Trafford? Is he someone you think, okay, I can see him in a United shirt, I can see him doing well in a United shirt? And the second part of this is, can we afford him? Can we make that deal happen? It's very similar in it to the Ollie Watkins situation, because that broke a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, and it was like United are in for Ollie Watkins, and you think, all right, in many ways, a move for Ollie Watkins makes sense. Scored a lot of goals in the Premier League over the last few seasons, but again, how are you going to pay for that when you haven't got any money? All the money we've got is for Bryan Mbeumo, and even that isn't done yet. That's looking like it's touch and go in terms of whether Manchester United can get it over the line because of the funds, because of the lack of, or the unwillingness maybe to pay extra, and also the inability to pay the extra 2 million that Brentford want. So how are you going to fund Nicolas Jackson? That's the big question for me. I don't quite see it. Some people not impressed. John Cho says 60 million, having a laugh, Chelsea. Let's look at Nicolas Jackson's sort of record, because no, not Nicole Kidman, who I've just searched for then. That was clever, wasn't it? So Nicolas Jackson, let's have a look. Last season, he got 10 goals and 5 assists in 30 matches. So a goal involvement every other game, which, if we're going to be honest, isn't too shabby. That's all right. I think he had a bit of a spell, didn't he, without scoring last season, but then overall he ends up with double figures in goals and, you know, a goal involvement every other game, which is fine. If you look at his Premier League record, I want to focus on Premier League because that's what we need players for. It's about the Premier League for me. Yes, we're in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, but we're not buying anyone for what they can do in the Carabao Cup. Let's just get real. So in the Premier League, he's played 65 games. He scored 24 goals. He's got 10 assists, which is decent. I think you could say there. So it's better than a goal involvement every other game. So if you had Nicolas Jackson, Bryan Mbeumo, we can get that deal done, and Matheus Cunha is your front three. There's goals there. I think the problem with Nicolas Jackson is he reminds me a little bit of, he's got a touch of the Lukaku's about him. He's a completely different player than Romelu Lukaku. I'm not saying he's a similar thing, but what Romelu Lukaku used to do is his numbers were decent, but the big games where you watch him, big games especially against top teams, and he'd miss chances, and he'd look almost comical at times. And I've seen Nicolas Jackson in a few big games where he's fluffed his lines. That's what concerns me. I mean, all this might be academic because we probably don't get it, but that is my concern about Nicolas Jackson. It's not even necessarily the price tag, which I think for a 24-year-old who's got relatively a decent return, you're going to pay around 50 million, I think would be fair. I think 60 is pushing it a bit. But I don't know. There's that sort of element to me in where you think in a big game, can you rely on him? Let me know what you think. Harry Jarvis says, just get Watkins, Marine Boy, says Heskey. BMW Racing 1974. Remember the strop he had over who took that penalty? Yeah, there was that thing, wasn't there, where I think it was Cole Palmer who basically scored every single penalty he took for Chelsea, was the penalty taker. And then all of a sudden, Nicolas Jackson decided he wanted to take it. And then Madueke started getting involved and trying to back Nicolas Jackson as well. And then in the end, Cole Palmer just waited, took the penalty, scored the penalty. And I think it was when Maurizio Pochettino was the manager of Chelsea. And he just basically came out and criticised them and said they shouldn't be doing what they were doing. Sorry, going back into... Right, Joe Buckley said, Andy Cole did that, but he made chance after chance. That's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life. Honestly, it's a myth, a complete myth that Andy Cole missed loads of chances. No, he didn't, right? Glenn Hoddle came out in his statement once that Andy Cole, he's the type of player that needs 5 chances to score a goal. So you're telling me that Andy Cole had, 200 chances in a season when he scored 40 goals in a season? That Andy Cole had 1,000 chances because he ended up with 200 goals, was it? It was a nonsense. It was just Glenn Hoddle being an half-wit, coming up with drivel. I watched Andy Cole for his entire career, including when he was at Newcastle, and he scored loads of goals, and he wasn't someone who fluffed loads of chances at all. His finishing was absolutely amazing, and you think about the fact of the amount of goals he scored, and that record only got broken recently by Erling Haaland. The amount of goals he scored, and when he was scoring all those goals, he didn't take penalties. He took 1 penalty. I think that was right at the end of his career. So just a phenomenal footballer and a phenomenal finisher as well. So it winds me up when people say that he missed loads of chances because it's just not true. Adam Hazler says, Jay, do you think in terms of funds, it's just been reported we only have the Mbumo money and just not reported we have a pot for other players? Potentially, I just think it's kind of logical, isn't it, that we have to sell some players to buy. Because if we buy Brian Mbumo for around 60 million quid and we've got Mateus Cunha in for 62 million quid, you'd expect that. Not you'd expect. That's 120 million quid that United have spent without any sales. That feels about right. That feels about what I'd expect in Manchester United to be spending. So maybe United do have extra money that we're not hearing about, but I'd be surprised if they did. We have got this credit facility, haven't we? I think that's got around 100 million on the credit facility, but the idea of that is that's like, get it in a case of emergency. In case, you need a sudden vet bill pops up that you were expecting. So you need to use it for that. But I don't think they want to dip into that because, as other people have pointed out when I've mentioned it before, that's kind of what got us into this mess. The sort of logical thinking and what we're hearing from most of the reports at the minute is that Manchester United need to sell players to buy more players. So we have got Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, Jadon Sancho and Tyrone Malacia to sell. So if we can move on all those players, that potentially is another 150 million quid. I think when we did the maths, I've done the maths before. If you're looking at about 40 million for Marcus, maybe you get 50, 60 million for Garnacho. That's about 100 million. Maybe Jadon Sancho is around 25, 30 million. Similar money for Anthony. Maybe that's around 150 million pound mark. There was some rumours doing the rounds the other day. Reports that maybe Jadon Sancho could go for 8 million, which I think is ludicrous. There was also this report that we had the other day as well, that Jadon Sancho could go for 20 million, but United have to give him 5 million as a bit of a payout for his contract, which isn't ideal. But if that's the way of getting him out the door and getting some money in for him, maybe that is the way to do it. Let me know what you think. James McGrogan says, rather sit off and wait for the right one, Jay. Not sure who that would be, but it's definitely not Jackson. Also, how is it Chelsea can offload their out costs to other to other Premier League teams really easily. Oh, hey, it's Kenvich. Said he was in my fantasy football team last season, swapped him for Welbeck. I don't know if you got rid of him and brought Welbeck in, or if you had Welbeck and you brought Jackson in. But I think they had very similar numbers. I think Danny Welbeck scored about 10 goals last season. So, and Malak says West Ham last game of the season, Andy Cole cost the league. Yeah, what did he do the season after that at the Riverside? What did he do the season in 99? Who won us the league in 99 with that goal against Spurs? Andy Cole. People don't want to remember the times he actually scored the goal that won Manchester United the title, helped win us the treble. People want to focus on that game against West Ham where Ludek McCloskey had the game of his life. Wayne Davies says, I'm not sure I'd want him for 30 million, to be honest. The fact is we don't have 60 million, so Chelsea can bought off. BMW Racing says Cole was world class. Yamada says Andy Cole was clinical. Go back and learn. Don't base your knowledge on the quotes of others. Real recognizes real, says Glenn Hoddle is a proper helmet. We'll have Andy Cole on the channel next week, so we'll ask him about that. Gareth Thompson says, morning, Jay. Sorry, late to the show from a sunbed in Croatia. Quick roundup, please. Just been talking about this Nicolas Jackson news that's in the Evening Standard, one or two other places, that Manchester United could be in for Nicolas Jackson from Chelsea. Chelsea do like to move players on. We have had Mason Mount, obviously, from Chelsea a couple of seasons ago. Looks like they don't need Nicolas Jackson because they brought in Liam Delap. They've also got João Pedro as well. But I don't know if the numbers make sense to me. David Garner, says I'd be looking to sell Onana, Mount too, but not too lightly. On Andre Onana, thank you for everyone, by the way, who's got involved in the chat and comments. Hit the like button. I think we've got about 1,000 people watching. Let's get to 200 likes. Yeah, there was a story yesterday that Andre Onana has suffered a hamstring tear. It was everywhere. I don't need to name the paper. It was literally across all the news. And it says it's been ruled out. Andre Onana has been ruled out. I've got it from the Mail here. I'm quoting them. I could have quoted anyone. Andre Onana has been ruled out of Manchester United's entire preseason program after the Cameroon goalkeeper suffered a hamstring tear on the second day of training. Onana will be sidelined for between 4 to 6 weeks, potentially keeping him out of United's opening Premier League fixtures against Arsenal and Fulham as well. The 29-year-old is still expected to go on the club's preseason tour and have treatment in the US, but he will miss the Premier League Summer Series games there against West Ham, Bournemouth and Everton, as well as the opening friendly against Leeds in Stockholm on Saturday and the final game at home to Fiorentina. So no Andre Onana on the tour. Well, certainly not playing on the tour. Looks like he could miss the start of the season. We've got a dilemma here, haven't we, gang? Ali Bayandé has struggled when he's come into the first team. Every single game Alec Bayandé has played, he's had one. He's had a mistake in him. Some games he's done well. You look at Arsenal at the Emirates in the FA Cup, saved penalties, did really well, but I think even that game he had one mistake. You look at the Aston Villa game, I think he got away with it a little bit with that disallowed goal. It was a disallowed goal, wasn't it? Yep. The Newcastle game where he gave the ball away. Look, we got battered anyway, but he still made a mistake. So I like Bayandé, but he's always made a mistake. And that's what worries me. That opening fixture against Arsenal, we cannot be dropping any clangers. We cannot be having any errors. Would you play Tom Eaton for that game if we don't sign anyone? Is he slightly more reliable? Possibly. I do like Tom Eaton. Do United need to sign a new goalkeeper? I mean, there was an argument made we need to sign a new goalkeeper anyway. We've been linked with Emi Martinez. And also, you don't sign a new goalkeeper just because your other keeper's going to miss 2 competitive games. But that conversation was already ongoing, wasn't it, about the goalkeeper situation? Let me know what you think. It is a weird one. It's a weird one. I want to get behind Onana. I really do. But he worries me. He does. And I actually think he's got till January. That's what I think. I think if by January we're still having this discussion about Andre Onana making mistakes, the defenders not being confident in Andre Onana not being the player we thought he was, nowhere near the player we saw for Inter Milan in the Champions League, then it's time to move him on. The issue you've got in a minute is the 2 other goalkeeping options aren't amazing. Tom Eaton is a good goalkeeper, but he's getting on a bit. And I don't think you could rely on him week in, week out. I don't think even he'd expect you to. And Ole Bayandé has struggled when he's come into the Manchester United team. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Malp says, United getting Chelsea rejects. Lol. Potentially. We'll have to wait and see. C. Joe James John says, yes, Onana injury, who we got as backup. Mention that. Heaton is our best keeper. No SHIT, says James Churchill. Oh, hey, it's Kenvich says, I'd be fine if we stuck John O'Shea net. Do you remember John O'Shea? It was at YLA, wasn't it? Kept a clean sheet. Did really well, didn't he, when he went in goal? Onana, no preseason versus Arsenal. Great start to the season. A says, January, my heart will not survive this. Dave says, how did we get from De Gea to De Gea and Romero to this utter dog SHIT? Tiger UK says, Jackson, going back to Nicolas Jackson news, says, is an upgrade on what we have. Notch is in the chat as well. BMW Racing 1974 says, what's De Gea doing for a few months? DP does code, says, if Chelsea need to sell, I'd have Jackson for 40 million tops. Johnny Heath says, Vitek might be an option. Should give him pre-season minutes and see how he does before signing anyone. I mean, the issue United have got as well is we haven't got much money. It's not like we've got a big transfer kitty where we can go out and just buy another goalkeeper because we've got money to spare. It's just a bit of a struggle in it at the minute. So I don't know. We'll have to just see what happens with the goalkeeper situation. The frustrating thing is you wanted Onana to have a good pre-season, get his confidence back, just stop some of the noise around him, show the manager what he's about, sort of underline the idea that he deserves to be backed, because that is what we were hearing, was that Ruben Amorim was willing to back him. So you think, have a positive pre-season, go into the season with a bit of confidence, hopefully have a good game against Arsenal, and then we can move on from there. Now we've got a situation where he has no pre-season, and if he does make the Arsenal game, which is touch and go, the pressure's going to be on again. It's just difficult, isn't it? It really is. It's so frustrating at the minute being a Manchester United fan. It's also frustrating with the lack of Brian Mbeumo news. There is no Brian Mbeumo news, so I'm not going to try and regurgitate the stuff that we've already repeated. When there is Brian Mbeumo news, we will let you know. We will update you on our socials. We'll go live. We are waiting. I'm a United fan like you guys. I am desperate for us to sign Brian Mbeumo, but it ain't happening yet, and there hasn't been any change in the situation yet. So there's no point in just continually repeating myself. I'm going to wrap it up there. It's all much of the same. We're waiting to see what happens with Mbeumo. We're waiting to see what happens with Sancho, what happens with Marcus Rashford. We know that there was an offer, wasn't there, from Juve for Jadon Sancho, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. There was some reports that we'd agreed a £17 million fee. I think that was in the Metro, but I don't know how sort of accurate that is. I think it came from La Stampa. No movement as yet. I'm hoping next week we see some moves. I'm hoping next week we can finally get Brian Mbeumo over the line. I'm hoping next week we can move on some of the players that are just surplus to requirements. The likes of Garnacho, likes of Jadon Sancho, likes of Onana, the likes of Marcus Rashford. It would be great if we can get some more business done before we travel to the United States. Obviously, we've got that game against Leeds on Saturday in Stockholm. Then we've got the preseason tour in the US. We are going to be there. Chris Griffith says, chin up, Jay. It'll be all over soon. Just another 50 years and it'll be all over. A full named Huggy says, let's hope so, Jay. Let's hope so. Gavin Rowland says, I wouldn't mind Jackson. I think he's a fighter. Yeah, if there's any movement, anything happens with the Nicolas Jackson story, we'll let you know, as always. It's been good chatting to you guys and getting your thoughts on it as well. Someone in the chat there says, S1 Sunkar says, can we not go for Denzel Dumfries? We were linked with him, weren't we, a couple of seasons ago? There's talk that maybe he's available. I don't know if we're going to get him in. I don't think we're going to buy any wing backs, you know. I've got a feeling that what we've got at the minute in terms of fullbacks, wing backs is what we're going to have. I wouldn't be surprised if we brought in Mbeumo, a striker and a midfielder. I think that's what we might end up doing. Whether that striker is Nicolas Jackson or someone else remains to be seen. Jordan Clark says, Mint Jay, a full name Huggy says, much love Jay. And Santa Notch says, happy Sunday. Big appreciation to everyone who's got involved in the chat and the comments today. I love the little Sunday morning chats we have, regardless of whether Manchester United are giving us much to talk about or much new updates. It's always good to have a chat with you guys and let you know, get your take on the latest transfer rumblings. Back tomorrow outside Old Trafford. So make sure if you're not doing so already, you are subscribing to this channel. Just looking out the window here, it is actually looking pretty sunny. I've been out for a run this morning. It was roasting, cracking flags out there. And it looks like it's continuing to be sunny in sunny Salford. So make sure you make the most of the sun shine. Enjoy your day. I've been Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.